It's preparing. Meeting is now streaming. Setting
Says
up.
we're live here, hopefully. We've had a couple technical difficulties here tonight to begin.
Okay, we are on the YouTube after the third attempt. Hold on. Okay. So, all right, people are coming back. I think they figured it out. Sorry, everyone. I accidentally hit the wrong button and it set off a Chernobyl level of chain reaction nightmares over here. So welcome. Tonight we have Amanda and Younes of Doublespace Photography from Toronto. Some absolutely wonderful, talented photographers who are they're based in Canada, but they travel all over the world. And I've seen them do work in South America, in Africa, in Europe. And they've done some really, really cool projects. And we're so glad to have them on because I think it's such a unique sort of circumstance in the architectural photography world. Husband and wife duo who are absolutely crushing it. So we've got a ton of questions tonight, and we have a lot to talk about. So I'm going to let them give a little bit of their origin story. And you know me and Tom by this point, but why don't you go ahead and tell us, what's that?
I said, we're old news. We want to hear from them.
Yeah, we're old news. You know all about us. So I would like to hear a little bit about how Amanda and Younes, actually how you guys met. You know, was it an architectural photography romance, or was it a pre-architectural photography romance? Was this like a college romance or something? I'm so curious as to how this all came about and how you guys ended up working together. So I'll let you take it away.
How much time do you got? All right.
Well, I guess where do we start?
Where we met?
Or you want to start with where we met?
Yeah.
Okay. I feel like I need to start before that. Okay, sorry.
So modest.
Yeah. Well, okay, fine. We'll start with where we met. We were introduced by a mutual friend. So I guess sort of tangentially, you can say that we met through photography because I know this friend, Angela, if she's watching, through photography, and she met Younes through photography, and she has got a little bit of a reputation as a matchmaker. And so she met Younes this one evening, and then the next day she wrote to me and she said, Amanda, I know you're not really interested in dating right now, but I have a guy for you. You, and I was like, okay, sure, whatever. And the rest is history.
Yeah, it's a little cooler than that. Come on. Okay. Well, actually, the first time we met, like we lived in different cities, and the first time we met,
I lived in Toronto at the time.
Yeah.
And Younes was living in Ottawa, which, if you're not Canadian, those are both in Ontario, but it's about 4.5 hour drive apart. So
we were talking about meeting up, and then one thing led to another, and we decided to go for a week to California and shoot Death Valley. So the first time we met was literally by the plant at the airport in Ottawa. Like
amazing.
And what part of California did you want to go to? Was it LA or San Francisco, or the whole thing?
Yeah, we did Death Valley. Because
Oh, okay. Oh, that's right. I was in Death Valley like a week ago, and I got a message. I don't know who it was. I always get messages from you guys, and I don't know who I'm talking to, so I got to watch it. But it was like, oh, we have such fond memories of Death Valley, and I was like, what do you mean? I had no idea that you had been here. So super cool.
We spent like a week just going around. Like I think we landed in LA.
we did, yeah.
Yeah, and then we just drove around for a week, and shot some mountains, some deserts, some. Well,
I guess it ties in now to say that when at the time we met, Younes was photographing landscape mostly.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, that's it. So that's kind of the Death Valley thing, and then we kind of both knew, like we were shooting kind of different thing, but we both kind of were converging towards kind of sort of the urban environment.
Okay.
And we both wanted to take this further than just I think we just loved it so much. Like we knew there was a career in it for us, and so we chatted about it, and we're like, you know what? We don't know each other. We just met. Let's do something together like that,
Is that the order it happened in?
Well, more or less. No. I mean, no, it's not. But we were still we still didn't even live together. Well, this is all within the first year of meeting.
Well, within 4 months, I moved to Ottawa because Younes was gainfully employed at that point, and I was not. So I moved from Toronto to Ottawa, and then and within a year of meeting, we were married. We had we had a 6-week engagement, and we just were like, yeah, let's just
Yeah,
get married.
amazing.
We got married.
How long ago was this?
That was 2000. We got married in 2011.
Yeah.
We
Okay.
got married in
We've been
2011.
together for just over 10 years now.
And then we started the business a couple of months after that.
Yeah.
Very good.
And that was
Okay.
like peak interest in digital photography, if you ask me, like 09 to 13. It was like everything was happening so quickly. And it was like such an exciting time to be a photographer. You know, it was like cameras were coming out like crazy, and probably everyone's getting swept up in this digital craze, and you timed it perfectly, obviously. And your love
Well,
was, caught up in that. And then
we both wish we were about 10 years younger, but
Yes.
Sure. Can you talk a little bit more about how you kind of targeted architecture as your interest
Sure.
at that time?
Yeah, I went to university for architecture. I studied architecture at University of Waterloo. I think I figured out a couple of years in that this maybe wasn't for me, but I didn't know what else to do. So I saw the program through. I worked for a few years in the field, but then I just sort of felt myself. And in the meantime, I started photography as a hobby. I started photography as a hobby in school, and it became more and more all-consuming. And I figured that's what I wanted to do. And so when Younes and I met, it just sort of crystallized. I was already wanting to head in that direction. And then I met him, and he also had an interest in photographing buildings and structures and the built environment. So it seemed sort of a natural progression for us.
Yeah, I think that's somewhat, the beauty of getting a degree in architecture is that the design thinking translates so well into kind of so many adjacent fields that a lot of people that I know, they practice a couple of years and then they slide into something that's adjacent where they can really apply those skills. And, I think that the rigor that comes with it really, really translates well into a lot of other fields. So that's really interesting. Yeah.
And I was just happy to hang around. I mean, this beautiful woman wanted to hang around me and take photos, and I'm just like, hey, I'll carry your gear. I'm cool. I'll drive. I've been the official gear schlepper driver at Doublespace for close to 10 years now.
That's good.
Chauffeur is the technical term.
So what is the rest? Is it just the two of you guys, or what does your team look like? Do you work with retouchers ever? Do you work with assistants on shoots? What's it look like?
Yeah.
Yes.
if they want to keep the marriage intact, I will assume that they're using some kind of assistant on location, right? It's not like, Younes, can you go move all of the furniture while I stand by the camera or something?
It used to be quite interesting at times. I'm sure you guys do this. Like when sometimes on a shoot, like maybe you're struggling with something and you have this kind of internal monologue, like, "Oh, you idiot, don't do this. Why did you, don't." This is not gonna work. What was I thinking? Well, except that there's two of us, so like that conversation happens out in the open, right? So
that's amazing. Yeah.
It's kind of an interesting, so you have to modulate it and kind of dose it so that it kind of works. And I mean, obviously we found a really good balance in that. I mean, so today, to answer your question, we do have an assistant on shoots all the time. For retouchers, we have a stable of people that we use more or less regularly. We really don't. I don't think either of us has real interest in doing heavy retouching, so we offer it as a service. We spend enough time in front of the computer already that it's so it's just it's something, it's a billable item, and we send it to people who are better than us and and do it well, and that's their thing. And,
if you can get a team, make it work, that's wonderful.
I think, we do most of our editing.
We still do a lot of editing. We don't farm out everything.
Yeah,
no, of course, yeah.
Yeah, that's it. When I say retouching, it's removing stuff and rebuilding. I mean, as you all know, we all shoot completely pristine buildings in the perfect readiness, in the perfect light.
Yeah, there's never any construction barriers or anything. No. Or stickers on the windows or anything. Always perfect. We have a question in the comments, which sort of it transitions into what the way we kind of have been structuring these talks. You guys who are out there, is we have a part about our guest, and then we kind of talk behind the scenes the week beforehand, and we come up with a couple of discussion topics. And the first one, Emilio Rothfuchs asks, how big is the importance of personal projects, and how do you find time to work on them while doing usual commercial commissions? Which is a really interesting question. And it ties into one of the topics that we wanted to talk about, which is sort of the spark that we all have for photography. And just to talk for a minute here before we all discuss this, I mean, I think that there aren't a lot of professions, I would say, that people will spend all of their professional time working on, you know, these in this category, right? And then they go and they take their free time and go and work on that same category, right? I mean, I don't imagine a lot of people do that, or, you know, there are certainly creative professions that do, but I mean, I think that that's part of the beauty of this, is like just the drive to make images into, like, it's sort of our language, right? Like, this is the way we speak to ourselves and to the world. So I just wonder if you guys can talk to either personal projects or just like how that drive to make images beyond just what the client needs, you know, makes how that fits into your work. I mean, I think that's what makes good photographers great.
Yeah, I mean, there are so many levels to what you're saying. I think, for, you know, at least for us, fundamentally, this is really about pursuing a passion, even within photography. I can tell you, I have no interest in really shooting, I don't know, weddings or you know, products or any, like we really live and breathe architectural photography, and so it really drives what we do day in, day out. It, you know, I mean, we got our honeymoon trip was shooting Calatrava's Arts and Science, City of Arts and Sciences, and we have no photos of ourselves in there, but that's, you know, who cares, right? So, but it really,
just
like,
scale figures.
not even, you know, we're just not, it's really for us a way of life. I mean, no ifs or buts about it, and so I think, you know, we live, so we were just talking about it earlier, like we live by this notion of always be shooting, whether you're commissioned or not commissioned, there's always something to shoot, you know, even if it's just with your phone. Actually, that's a very interesting exercise, really.
I agree.
If you guys are interested, but, you know, I think, so that, obviously, so personal work is huge, I think, on so many levels, both for developing your vision, your style, your portfolio, like on, so, you know, we all know, like, you have so many constraints on a shoot. You can't always just start riffing, you know, sometimes you can, but often not really. So I think, you know, that really is fundamental for that. It's really important for the soul, because as fun as it is to shoot, you know, commission work, you know, sometimes it's work, you know, 16, 17-hour days where you have a million things to figure out and keep track of, and you know, and it's not.
You guys, I remember you did you always do some crazy cabin on the ocean in like on like a heath, and I'll get a text from you at like 2 a.m. LA time, which means 5 for you. And then I'll like have gone to bed and woken up the next day, and you're still shooting because the sun like never sets. You know, it rises at like 3 and goes down at 11, and you're there in the summer for sunrise and sunset. It's crazy. The work ethic that you guys have, and obviously extends to, you know, the personal projects as well. But it's just wild hours.
It is, and you know, that's just the way it is, I think. And you know, so I think just to wrap up that last question, like, you know, I mean, in terms of personal work, so like, and the other thing is that, you know, I think it's important to feed our soul, and I think Amanda can speak to this more, because actually, you know, in terms of like finding the time and carving out, like she's a lot better at it than I am in terms of having the discipline to go stick to a project and you know, to an idea. I mean, you know,
yeah, Amanda, we want to hear about the book. That's, you know,
I'm more like I'm a loose cannon, you know. Look at my hands. That's why. So,
right.
That's, yeah.
Oh. Yeah. Well, I mean, I totally agree with everything Younes said. I mean, it's really like, it's more. I mean, I'm sure you guys would agree too that this is more than just a profession. Like, it's a whole lifestyle. It's just who we are. You know, you can't really separate from the job, for better or for worse. Sometimes it's not the greatest, but this is just what we do. And I mean, I don't know if Younes feels the same, but if there were no buildings left in the world tomorrow and there was no architecture to shoot, I would still want to make images. Like, I just want to make images.
That's a funny little thing. Like my therapist guy that I talked to, a business coach, therapist, whatever you want to call him, he's like, you need to shut off from work. And I'm like, I don't think you understand.
It's not work. It's an obsession.
I can't. And it's like you really become, and whether or not you want to, a lifer, like just by virtue of being in this career. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah. For better or for worse. I think maybe actually this is where, to some degree, personal work is healthy, even though it's still within the realm of photography. I think it's really good to be able to like push one's boundaries a little bit, maybe like not do something that there's actually something I really like about Amanda's 50-50 project. It's one camera, 150 lens, not even a shift, and that's it. And that's your concern. And a lot of dubious subjects, I guess, sometimes, that you would necessarily go out and shoot. But it really pushes you to like take a breather and think differently and approach your work, but also your life a little differently. So,
Did you find that even though you were only using one lens and one subject, that in its own sort of way, it was a little bit creatively liberating because you didn't have to think about all of the variables that would go along?
Absolutely. Very much so. And I'm already somebody who likes to work within constraints up to a point, I think. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, I was just like telling you this yesterday because we went out and took some photos yesterday, that every time I put a lens on my camera, I wish I had another lens. I have like lens FOMO. Like, it doesn't matter what lens I have.
That's great.
I want a different lens on. So if I just go out with one lens, then I'm a lot happier because I know that I only look for the shots that are achievable with that lens. And I don't think about like, oh, I wish I had the 70-200 with me, or I wish I had the, I just sort of focus on what I can do with what I have. Whereas if I have 3 lenses with me, I'm like constantly wanting the lens I don't have.
Yeah, sure. I think with series-based work that the artist defining the rule set early on in the process is what oftentimes makes it successful. I mean, people like Bernd and Hillette Becker, right, have made an entire career out of a little rule set with typologies of things. And, you could think of Alex Soth with Sleeping by the Mississippi, the first big thing he did, right? Like where you have the rule set for him is, X number of miles from the top of the Mississippi River in Minnesota to the bottom. And, it's just like, just being like putting yourself in that rule set. And then, it's like, what fun would sports be if you could just do anything, right? It's like greatness happens within that box, right? So I think that defining the box is something that is really important for personal work. So.
Yeah. And I think it's, it's something that's funny I discuss with Mike quite often as well, is this idea of, having that rule set is something that really gives you the drive to kind of go through with the project, because I know I have this propensity to just think of a million projects and not coming through like finishing any of them, but having that, but I think really the difference ultimately with people who succeed and people who don't is kind of, as I like to say it, getting shit done. It's like you just gotta, and kind of, again, having that constraint is a great way to just kind of say, this is what I got to do. Let's play within that and get something done. And to me, the revelation with Amanda's project is seeing how the sum of the work is, I guess the work is so much more compelling than the individual parts, So I thought that was really, really kind of, again, really neat to see, because I'm basically a spectator here and sometimes a driver, but I mean the sheer will and doggedness to get this done, but also like honestly, like some of these places, like you look at them and they look incredible on these photos. I drive by them later, I'm like, really? Wow, how did she do that? So it's kind of really neat. So
they're really beautiful. Yeah. Congratulations. It's a nice project.
What I like about it kind of combines three interesting concepts, like the 50mm lens, the modernist churches, and the the concept of architectural photography. And the photos are incredible, but it has an appeal. Like, even if I don't know what a 50mm lens is, I can still find something to enjoy about it as an architect. And I'm looking at the photos and they're just awesome. And it makes me wonder, like, do you find yourself, I mean, would you ever get to a shoot and be like, I'm only going to do this with the 50mm lens? Is that something that you feel that you would feel comfortable doing at this point? Because this is like a little bit inspiring to me. I just want to, like, I've got to shoot on Friday and I feel like I should, like, I'm just reconsidering my
Only
entire
bring the
approach
50.
because there's really some incredible photos that you managed to pull out. And like I find myself, like you guys mentioned earlier, always just instinctively reaching for the 24 or the 17 or whatever it is, because I need a front shot. And and I walk across the street and I point the lens at the building and I knock it out and yay, I'm done. But there's so many, like this composition here with the telephone wires in the church. This is awesome, and you it makes you think detail really creatively. Like, look at, like, I would never ever see this with a more conventional focal length. And I think this is such a great shot where you've got the sort of guy wires mirroring the, what are we going to call those? The beams in the church there. And even like the recessed little brick detail, how it matches the street signs. It's just so cool. And that's stuff I would never ever see if I was commissioned to shoot this, because I would instinctively go for the 24. Like, look at this.
They've got your Comic Sans on the sign there, Mike.
Where's my Comic Sans?
It was there. It was on the
and
sign.
that is a peak design right there. Yeah, someone says, good thing the 200mm wasn't your lens of choice. You'd be in a helicopter for all these.
Challenge accepted.
Yes, I like it.
200 churches at 200mm. Just shoot one picture from space and get them all.
There you go.
It is actually a stated goal of mine that I will do commission shoot with 50 on, with the 50 only, for sure. Like, it is really my favorite lens.
Same. It's a beautiful lens.
Like, again, I don't want to preach, but I think, like, we really don't believe, like, I think, each subject matter, each project is to be shot differently. So we're not very dogmatic in our approach. So sometimes, I shot an inside of a house with the 17 almost exclusively, which never happens. That is the one rule that I have with myself, that the 17 comes out only in extreme situations.
Sure.
But in this case, it really worked for the shoot. So anyway, but the 50 still just makes my personal favorites almost 9 times out of 10. Yeah.
So I have one more question, and then we'll keep moving the ball down the field. And it was kind of the second part of Emilio's question from earlier. How do you schedule time to do this? The way I do, I don't know how you do it, but the way I do it is I will just pick a date 2 months in advance and put it on my calendar, and I'll say airplane photo shoot. And I will not budge that. Even if someone comes to me and says, we have a $10,000 commission, I'm like, I'm booked. Sorry. That's my method. But I don't know, my thing is, like, if I book the plane ticket or put it in the calendar, it's happening. Do you do something similar, or do you just sort of fit it in wherever, even if it's just an architecture shoot that I want to go do, I'll just put it in the calendar and make it happen. And, it'll be like a rock in a stream for other bookings.
That'd be the smart way of doing it.
That would be the smart way of doing it.
Like, what should do? I don't think
should do that.
Yeah, but we might have a few more constraints than you do. Well, I think we have some constraints that you don't have, but also we have some, I guess, things that. So I think, well, first we have kids, so it's a little more complicated to just, So sometimes it's when the stars have to align in so many ways. In so many ways, between the weather and the kids being cooperative, and you wanting to drag them out and fight that battle. Not really. I mean, or whether we can take time away from each other, like, to be able to do that. Again, it depends on the subject matter. But also, I think, we have quieter winters than you do.
Yeah.
So that a lot of our personal stuff happens in the dead season.
Sure.
So we have a lot more flex time, between January and March, I would say. We take most of our vacations in March. Best possible time to do anything.
I just have a tangential
I
question.
love
Is
March light, too.
everyone dead from like December until February?
Here,
Yeah.
yeah. Here they don't even know you. So
I'm just I don't get anything. Thanksgiving to Valentine's Day, one shoot, you know?
For me, it's like usually just January. February's been crazy this year, and last year was pretty good too. I don't know why. I think people kind of wake up after the New Year's and they got things to shoot. But
at first, it's been largely unpredictable.
Yeah,
It's very variable.
December is often still quite busy with people trying to get things in, I assume, before year end. Or
sure. Yeah.
Yeah, we often shoot like up until Christmas.
January is almost always.
I don't know if
Actually, since we moved to Toronto, they've definitely been busier.
Yeah,
than
that's
for
true.
sure. I mean, last year, which actually makes it all the more aggravating, I guess. Like, I mean, January to March 2020, holy moly!
Yeah.
Everyone I talked to was like,
same.
really like fire. It's like, what's wrong with everyone, right?
Yeah.
so when it all came to a halt, it was like, wow,
Right.
I did not. Obviously, we saw it coming, but
Yeah.
not to that
Yeah.
extent. Right? So it's kind of, but yeah, generally it's still quieter, regardless. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know if you guys feel this way about your clients, but it seems like my clients all talk behind closed doors with each other, and then they all do the same thing at the same time. Like I get these weird, it's like I'm a fisherman, and it's like with fishing, it's like you fish and you fish and fish, and then you catch 6 fish. And you're like, what the hell, fish? Like you all decided to eat at the same time. Did you talk about this?
Yes.
And with clients, to me, it seems like it's like, one Monday I'll get, 14 emails. And then the same thing goes with like another week, I'll have just client after client that are postponing emails. It's funny how they kind of ebb and flow as one.
I get that in like August and September when everyone's hyped up on awards and they're like, oh, we need it photographed, and we need it photographed by August 28th. And like 6 people need it photographed by August 28th or whatever the deadline is for the AIA or wherever you guys are. And I'm just every year for the past like 4 years, just August, September. Like I just like don't even talk to me because you won't find me, except this year because COVID. But before that,
for us it tends to be October.
Andy McPherson's just being a bully in the comments. He wants to know what's the coldest weather we've shot in. Mike, you go first.
I'm gonna say 68 degrees, maybe.
You're banned.
I don't know. I had a hoodie on. I'm not sure. It was something like that.
You are banned.
Actually, no. I've actually shot in Iceland. It was cold there. It was very cold. My hands were like pure white. I don't know how cold. Too cold, but cold. But I'm sure that you guys have all had me beat. So,
how about you, Tom?
I want to say -15 Fahrenheit, probably. I was on a shoot for SOM in the polar vortex back when those were a big deal. And I remember nothing would work. I had to keep going in the car. I was on a construction site and I had my car running and I was trying to keep all my batteries warm and stuff, and everything would freeze up and stop working. But I had my tripod in the car with me, right? And I bet this is back when I had a big old clunky Gitzo with metal. Everything was metal and it was so cold and the feet were metal. So I had it in the car, and I guess I had it where the feet were near a vent, and I took it out and I set it down and I made a picture, and I went up to leave, and my tripod had melted into the ice and frozen and it was stuck. I had to kick the legs out because each of the legs had frozen in. So that was a good shoot. Beautiful blue sky.
Yeah. No, I don't know what my -15 translates to in I know the -20 in Celsius and Fahrenheit is the same, but for me, I think I'd say probably close to -30.
-15 is -26 C.
There you go. That's right. That's very close to my coldest. Yeah. Although to be honest, like the most uncomfortable was not nearly as cold, but it was. It's a shoot we did in Nova Scotia where we showed up, and they have like it was like concrete, radiant heated concrete floors.
Mm-hmm.
And it broke down just as we arrived, and it's -10 Celsius. So I don't know. I mean, probably like I don't know, 0 or -5 Fahrenheit or something like that.
Sure.
But it's inside too, right? So like so you're walking shoeless on this freezing concrete floor. And I mean, we were just like, oh, it's brutal. Like, we're in every layer we had. And
it was probably, I mean, this is, I don't know if we can pull up the images, but this is like right on the ocean. So it was also like super, super windy. So it's not like it was like pleasant either.
Yeah, that's tough.
Yeah, and I think we were supposed to spend 2 nights there initially. This was in December in Cape Breton. And then we spent 1 night like with like all the blankets we could find. The owners were not there. So in this house with no heat. Like,
oh my God, that's terrible. That's so cool.
Wow. Pretty cold. Yeah, we wore like our snow pants inside.
Yeah.
So, yeah. And then we managed to get everything we needed by the afternoon of the next day. So we didn't end up spending the second night, I don't think.
Well, I think the place was snowed in for like a week.
Yeah, and if we hadn't left, then we could have been snowed in for days.
Oh, yikes. Okay, let's move on to one of our next topics.
We do have a real agenda, right? We have a real agenda.
We're getting a little tangential, which is great. We wanted to talk about this. This came up a little bit before in some of our other conversations, but I think it's worth having the conversation with you all because you'll have a new take on it, which is the sort of homogeneity in the industry, right? We talked about this with Andy in Australia, how you tend to get a lot of architectural photography that looks very similar, and you couldn't necessarily identify the style of the photographer that made it. So we want to talk about taking the craft beyond just being a technically proficient photographer and, into creating meaningful imagery that has a style that is uniquely your own. So how have you guys approached that conundrum?
Do you want to start?
Yes. I think we struggle with the notion of style. I don't know if you guys do too, because like part of our thing, and something that it's not just the thing we truly believe in, is that we want to be responding to the architecture, not sort of saying, oh, well, Doublespace's style is to do this and we're going to come in and do this. We want to respond to the spaces. We want to create images that work for them. But then, how do you have a style and do that? Are you, and it's a rhetorical question. It's sort of the eternal struggle of like, how do you create, do you create image that's distinctively yours while still being faithful to the spaces that you are interpreting?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So to me, sort of like having a style and creating meaningful images aren't necessarily one and the same thing. I mean, they can go hand in hand, but they aren't analogous.
Yeah, I think, I think I'm not going to make a lot of fans saying this, but I feel like, we're all like in this industry, I feel like there's this tendency to get these images that are really pristine. They're like technically, the proficiency is like there are no shadows, the whites are whiter than white, everything is in this spot and the exposures are great and, the outside and the inside and all. But at the same time, like, is that all it is about? Is it just about documenting the space and which I think is something like, like, is it about just saying, well, I was in this room and this is what it looked like to me? Or is it more than that? And for us, and again, and this is just our personal choice, I think, the question is always, we really think that architecture can be transformative and transcendent and interesting and exciting. And we like to kind of show that excitement in our photo. We want people to say, well, wow, that place, I want to visit it. I want my own, or I want, we do get the criticism sometimes, or like, it's easy when you shoot, this temple out in Santiago, or this house in front of this incredible landscape. But at the same time, I think you can do that in many ways, in many different subjects, just again, by just having a different approach to it than just dropping your tripod in the middle of the room or in the corner of a room and capturing the space in front of you, and just just having a conversation with the people, with the architect, or the designer, and kind of trying to figure out what they're trying to communicate, what they're trying to do, and sort of trying to capture that, and that happens in different ways with different people with different spaces. Mm-hmm. Does that make sense?
It does. Yeah. I mean, I think, Amanda, one thing that you said that resonated with me is that you know, ultimately your goal is to make a set of images that work for the architect or the client, right? Which I think is, we've heard that before, and I want to reiterate that because, you know, I think that's part of being a successful photographer who doesn't just work for themselves, right? You need to ultimately make pictures that work for the people that you're making the pictures for. But yeah, I mean, and to be honest, to speak to what you said, I think there's, you know, there's sort of, it gets almost to be like math, right? Like these people kind of, they have like a calculation, and that's how they make their photographs maybe sometimes, which is dangerous because, you know, if you're like, oh, well, I'm gonna, you know, this situation rhymes with the situation that I've been in before, I'm gonna set my tripod where I did before, and I'm gonna put the same amount of shift on my lens so that I have 1/3 here and 2/3 here. And I'm gonna make sure my whites are at 250, and I'm gonna look at the histogram and mirror the, you know, info, and then my blacks are gonna be at 10. And, you know, it's like, ultimately it's photography and they're photographs that we're making, and they're not renderings, right? So
well, what's interesting, one of the reasons I love architectural photography so much is that every single photo, every setting is different. Every single photograph is a puzzle that has to be figured out. So as soon as I'll catch myself and I'll ask my assistant, and I'm like, did we take this picture a week ago? And it's a kitchen and it's the 1-point perspective with all the little bar stools lined up and the stupid pendant lights right in the middle. And she's like, yeah, you did. And so not only do I want to create something different, but I always find that like when I do these formulaic photos, or, you know, and I stop, I catch myself, and sometimes they slip through, you know, but when I catch myself and I take an extra 5 minutes to dig, or I'm like, okay, the light sucks right now, I'm just going to come back. I know the sun's going to set over there. I know it's only going to get better, or I've got to take it now. I already missed my window. It's only going to get worse. But, you know, you kind of step back and you think, how can I get out of this formula? And I'll change lenses, or I'll, you know, literally just take a 5-minute break and walk outside and come back. And then as soon as I came back in a different way, I see something new. That helps. But yeah, like that's something I'm very conscious of, and I'm always trying to catch myself get in these formulaic situations, not only on location but also in post-production. You know what I mean? If I find myself doing the same thing over and over with the, you know, blend to flash, and like you said, put the whites at 250 and measure it. How about just take the single exposure from the dark bracket and just do one edit in Lightroom and see how that looks, rather than fall back to the same thing. But that's enough on me. I did have a question that sort of fell to the wayside. Do you guys find that as a husband and wife team, like, can you guys tell, oh, that's an Amanda photo? Or, you know what I mean? Like, can you see the differences in composition or in differences in your style? And would you say that like your shared life experience kind of informs the style of photography? Because I definitely noticed that my personality shows up in my photos and I can see it. I can see a little bit of Tom's personality in his photos too, but I don't know if you feel the same way, and like you have this interesting shared experience where your marriage is reflected in the photos, or you're looking at each other's work and you're like, clearly Younes took that, it's a man photo, or clearly Amanda took that, that's definitely her work. Or has it kind of blended together into this seamless amoeba at this point?
Yeah, I think yeah, you know, I think we've sort of have very similar aesthetic, very similar sort of aesthetic goal, I guess. You know, like it's very like we tend to like the same images of the same photographers in a very similar way. I think I think we approach photography very differently. I think Amanda has a more what's the word I'm looking for? It's for like a better term, is like more artistic approach, and I have a more scientific approach. Like, you know, it's like, it's just, but I think we come to it, like, you know, for a long time, we just worked behind the same camera. So like we would just, you know, work the images until we're both happy with them. So I think. So
it wasn't a question of what is this an Amanda image or a Younes image. It's like, well, we were on the shoot and we workshop this image together, so it's just image, right?
And you said for a long time you did that. Has that workflow changed a bit?
Yes, well, kids.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, so yeah, I think
there's less of you both on the shoot at this point?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, right now it happens like a few times, and then, you know, like we have kind of we've taken on different roles in
Is that
Doublespace?
Is that because of COVID as well, or like even before COVID, you were kind of, you know, not on shoots together as much?
But I think you did.
Well, even before COVID, because I mean, our children are now 6 and 3, so it's a pretty
I
young
see.
age.
They're
so-
not just at school all day, and yeah, okay.
Yeah, no.
Yeah.
I mean, COVID has definitely like changed.
Yeah,
things
well,
too,
no day
yeah.
care providers of any kind, and I mean it's already tough enough with you know the work hours and things like that. And
Of
then-
course, yeah.
So, so I think I think the sort of the arrangement that we have right now is when we can make it work together, we do it. If not, then you know I kind of do the more commercial, and Amanda does the more like I'm sure you guys are actually Mike is kind of the king of doing this, like having the personal the diversifying income streams, I guess. So like you know for us it's very important to kind of find sort of different ways of nurturing our livelihood for like a better term. So you know we just have different focuses that work better for our various strengths, I guess. And yeah, and that's you know so it's been an adjustment, I guess, from that perspective. But I still think it's really funny because I mean you know we still have a lot of conversations about that. We still look at photos together. We still look at the work together. We still have you know like we'll have each other review select photos, you know, talk, you know, critique things like that. So it's kind of, you know, it's I think there's always that DNA is always there. I think regardless.
Sure. And Emilio has another question kind of about this. Do you all have?
I loved his second question. I think that's a good one. Do you ever get requests from clients that say, "I want Amanda"?
That's
vice versa.
We've never had that out loud, but I can tell you I've had experience. Oh my God. You know what I'm talking about.
No.
Yeah. So this one client, the loveliest of men and great work. It was a fun project.
Yes, I know what you're talking about.
I could not talk to this gentleman and not put both feet in my mouth. And I mean, and the more I tried to get out of it, the deeper the feet went. so we kind of just decided that I just wasn't going to talk to this gentleman, you know, like as much. You know, I'm just gonna stand back and let Amanda do the heavy lifting. You know, we never, you know, we never have had anyone say anything like, you know, I mean, we're nice people. You know, generally. No, so far it's never really happened.
Yeah, it hasn't come up. No.
Yeah.
I just wanted to circle back to something from the previous question. Sorry.
Yeah, please do, Amanda.
Well, I don't disagree that the part of all of this is to get a set of images that works for the architect and that works for their purposes too. That wasn't actually what I meant with the style and interpretation. It was that like I don't think we necessarily respond to the same to different places in the same way. So when I'm talking about like a style, like I don't want to come in and pose, I want the building to speak to me in the way that the building speaks to me and make the images that I think are right for this building, as well as like, you know, obviously when you have a client, you want to create a set of images that they're happy with and that they can use. But I was sort of talking about more not going in with a predisposed view of what this should look like and just creating that I think this space calls for.
Yeah, good. Thank you for clarifying.
I mean, obviously we want.
You want
your clients to like the images and be able to use them and be happy with them. But I meant more just like, you know, I don't want to take the same approach with every building because I don't feel the same way about every building. And I mean, maybe it's tried to say that what I think makes meaningful images is evoking emotion in other people. And I think the only way you can do that, because meaningful is different to everyone, is to make images that you are connected to and that you feel emotional.
I absolutely love how excited you just got. That was what was so another great question that we kind of all spitballed together before we came on here was like, how do you we talked about this a little bit earlier as well, but how do you reconcile your own vision with that of the architect, and how do you deliver such a personal product, one that you're clearly very passionate about, with the customer who has their own agenda, who has their own vision. And, you know, is there, it almost seems like, you know, you're trying to inject as much of that personality as you can, but at the same time, you have to keep them happy. So what are some big, you know, some big ways that you guys make sure you can continue to find, like you said, you're kind of, this is your life and you love it, but how do you continue to inject that personality into your work when, again, you're trying to get something for an architect when they already have a vision sort of built up of what they want?
Yeah, well, I think it's a bit of a gray zone, to be honest. I think it's sort of trying to figure out. I think it starts really from the really main concept that you can't be everything to everyone. So ultimately, there's gonna be clients that you just will not be able to satisfy, or they will not, or at least, or maybe it's just not a working relationship. That you know, I think ultimately, in the best case scenario is when you and the client are happy with the images that are made, right? Mm-hmm. And the best way to do this, from our perspective, is when it's a collaboration. We love having the architects on set with us. We love having that conversation. Sometimes the architects, you know, they've lived with these projects for like 5, 6, 10 years. Sometimes, you know, they have certain views of them, and sort of kind of have this conversation where we're like, you know, well, what are you trying to express? Not, how, I'm sure you guys get this all the time. Like, I want this shot. And you're like, mm-hmm. But what are you trying to say? You know, figure out the shot, that's my job. But what is it you're trying to say? And let's find a way that really conveys that message, and not just this room that looks like any other room that any other architects could have done. So that's how you treat it? That's how you treat it, man?
Rude.
Yeah, I'm gonna put it back on the pedestal where it belongs.
I think part of I'm not saying that we have all the answers. It's obviously a work in progress. Is time. That if we often talk about how great it would be to have more time always, and then you can sort of do the images that are asked for, that are on the shot list that the client has requested, but also have the time to explore other things. So I think that could be one. Yeah. I mean, like you said, like being sort of copacetic with a client is great, but I mean, you can't manufacture that, right? That just happens. So, yeah. And yeah, and that one way to sort of reconcile the two is it's easier said than done. Yes, I would like 3 days to shoot this building you'd like me to do in a half day. And they're like, oh, sure. No problem. Here's some money. You know, I think that's one sort of way around it. And like Younes said, we like to have clients on shoots. I think it's a way of you can sort of show them what you're doing, and you know, we never say we're not going to take an image. We take the image and we're like, let's just try this. Let's see how this looks. And
well, it's a collaborative process ultimately, right?
Yeah, and ultimately you want to work with people who kind of trust your vision and what you bring to the game. And you know, I think that's, again, it's a long-term thing. You know, it's how you present yourself, it's how you present your portfolio, it's how you present, you know, the working relationship with the architects and so on. And then you know that, I mean, it's tricky. You know, you can just decide that for some architects, you're just going to do what they want because that's how it works, and you're just going to do it. And or you can just decide, you know what, some people we're just not meant to work together, and so be it. You know, and there's no right or wrong answer. Like it varies with the situation, to be honest. You know?
And it has taken, you know, it's interesting. Like, I've been doing this 11 years now, and there's definitely, you know, relationships that I get into, client relationships, where it's just not going to work. And I've come to accept that that's okay. And, you know, I have 4 or 5 client relationships, and we're like this, you know what I mean? We'll go get dinner after the shoot. I'll talk about their dog, their kids, everything. And it's like we're really good friends. And it's like any other relationship in life. Sometimes it just isn't going to work, no matter how hard you try or how much you need the money. And that's what it is more than anything, is sort of fostering that relationship. I love what you said a few minutes ago. I made a note of it in the comments because I thought it was so good. But you said, my job is to find out where to put the camera. You tell me what you're trying to communicate. I'm going to absolutely steal that. But that seems like the best, because I've never had a good way of saying to a client where things aren't quite working out, you know, trust me. And they're like, can you just get a shot here? And they'll do this with their finger. And, you know, they're like, I want 3 walls and I want to see everything. And I'm like, all right, here's 17 and it looks terrible. But I love what you said. And so, yeah, I'm filing that one away. But
Yeah.
back to your point, everything it's a relationship, and you just, it takes a few years to start to find. A lot of younger photographers don't understand this. You cannot be every client's photographer. It takes time. You might get a client, but it may take 5 years to get your first, you know, 2 peas in a pod situation with the client.
Yeah, I think it's really probably one of the hardest things to learn in the business, to be honest, is that it's you know, I guess it falls within the idea of setting boundaries in a way, but it's like, again, it's okay to lose a sale. It's okay to not get along with somebody, and it doesn't mean you're bad or they're bad, or, you know, and people are like, oh, you know, maybe you have, it's not because I'm comfortable and I have money in the bank and I can take the loss, but it's just that sometimes those relationships can be toxic in terms of how you perceive your work, or how, you know, how you work. So sometimes, you know, they can end up in bad blood that loses you more business because, you know, you have a bad, you know,
Good point.
And then it's time that you're not taking to develop your craft or seek relationships that are more mutually beneficial to everybody. Because that's really, again, ultimately, I want my clients to be happy. That's really kind of my primary driver, but not at my expense either. You know, I think, you know, we all, it's a tough job, no matter what people think. It's tough, it's stressful, it's a lot of, you know, there's a lot to deal with, and I don't want to deal with it if I have to fight everybody. If I have enough variables to fight, you know, and I think it's a healthy thing to do from the get-go. It doesn't mean you're a diva. It really is not, oh, you know, I'm so special. That's not thing. It's just that, you know, sometimes some people are not a good fit, you know, like I'm sure it happens to you all the time, you know, like this, you're talking with somebody and you're saying this and they understand that, and they say this and you understand, and it's just clearly the communication isn't there, and that's just not healthy for either side, you know. So yeah, just, I think having that comfort level to say, it's not right.
I would like to piggyback on what you're saying. I'd like to just draw a line to say, to make a distinction where there's like a subcategory here where sometimes the headbutting is because of the process, and the client, if you're working with a client, a new client, you don't really know their history with photography, right? So the process that they've used with other photographers is all they know, right? So part of developing these long-lasting relationships is kind of client education, I would call it, right? So as you start working with somebody, there's absolutely people that, you know, it's like, you know, 2 different elements that just don't go together, right? But there are others that, just because they think, you know, okay, we need 20 pictures today, we need, you know, we need 30 pictures today, or we have to shoot everything. Here's all the renderings. Here's all our renderings. We need these as photos, right? That doesn't necessarily mean that you're never going to get along. You just have to slowly educate them, and it may take 3 or 4 shoots. And you have to sort of, if you're willing to meet in the middle and then start to take opportunities where you can say, you know, what are you trying to say? Oh, okay. Well, as a photographer who's been on 500 or 1,000 shoots, you know, let me show you another way that we might show that. And once you start to develop a little bit of trust with clients like that, you'll find that they really quickly are a lot more moldable, and that the shoot ends up being closer to what you want, and they end up being happier than with your old process, because the process you're using is you know, it's better. So
I think I never what I meant is when that communication doesn't happen. Like, I mean, to me, the headbutting per se, or like having a client who challenges you, that's fantastic. Actually, you know, I love it when I'm wrong. I love it when
me too.
You know, I love it when you know, a client shows you a shot and you're like, I don't think it's gonna work, because like Amanda said earlier, like, you know, we'll always say, let's try it. Let's do what you want. For sure, you're paying, you know, we'll do it. Yeah. And then I'll show you my way and see what works best, right? And then sometimes you're like, oh, I didn't think that was gonna work. There you go.
That's when I say we'll put your credit line on that one.
Yeah. No, and yeah. So to me, again, it's not about conflict or disagreement, or it's when clearly there are two different philosophies that are not meant to match, and that is okay. Some people like to drive a Toyota, some others like to drive a Honda, and some people like Nikon and Canon. It doesn't mean one is better than the other. They just do the same thing differently, and that's okay.
That's a good way of putting it.
That's really it.
I feel like listening to the three of you speak, to put this in, Canadian terms, like I'm playing pond hockey and I'm like watching Gretzky and Yzerman, warm up with the puck before the game, and it's just like professionals, and I'm over here just sort of dawdling in the little leagues. Like, I don't know, Here's a question though: have you guys found that building that rapport during? I've really struggled during COVID. Now, America, land of the free, home of the brave. Call it whatever you want. We have exactly zero hesitation, and I'm not saying it's right or wrong. It's crazy, is what it is. With everything's open, everyone's shooting everything, but everyone's still like 6 feet, got the mask on. Building that rapport on set is like. I've had a couple new clients during COVID. It is so much harder. And I have had so much trouble shooting with new clients during COVID. And I just come home completely drained, trying to sort of communicate, build that rapport, get my personality across, getting people to lighten up when everyone's, 6 to 12 feet away, and like people back up. You want to show them the computer or the iPad, and they're like afraid to get close to you. And you're trying to communicate things, and you can't be like, look through the lens, because everyone's freaked out. Have you had that at all, Tom? Or are you mostly sort of outside and not a big deal?
No,
and I don't know if you guys have been shooting up in Canada at all right now, or if you're just kind of on like lockdown, or what the story is there.
I haven't found it to be terribly harder. There's still challenges, but I haven't found it to be terribly difficult. How about you guys?
I have not enjoyed shooting in COVID times, I will say. Actually, especially exteriors. No, it has nothing to do with the client bit. I just, like logistically, you never have to deal with the cold, Mike. But, come October, November, you got to spend 10 or 12 hours outside, where you can't really necessarily go into a coffee shop and sit down or have lunch, or.
This is a good point.
Or you know what? Take a toilet break. Ooh, that was hard.
It's hard.
I know it's hard, but it's like.
Where do you go? Yeah,
and I can't just drive across town to go use my toilet. You know what I mean? Right. So I find that tricky. From a client perspective, obviously there's less speed. It's just been awkward. Everything's just been a bit more awkward. Like you're uncomfortable with the mask. People are comfortable with the mask. People are like, oh, but you still get the job done. Whatever. Whatever.
I feel like it's. For me personally, I don't want to spend too much time on this, but I shoot predominantly residential.
Uh-huh.
And so, we're traveling in little pods from bedroom to living room to bathroom. And it's like
tight quarters.
I gotta like send a runner out with an iPad to the living room to show them the composition from the bathroom. And it just seems like it's way more, just building that relationship is so much harder. And I really struggle with that, because, something that's so important to me is, getting my personality across, having fun on shoots, sort of, getting in. Everyone's just deadpan right now. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
I hear you.
I'm no fun on a good day, so it's the same.
Beautiful. Should we wrap it up? Is there any other?
Let's take one more question. I screwed the whole thing up at the beginning, so we didn't really start until like 6:05.
Yeah,
so
sure.
We'll do. Colin Robertson had a great one.
Let's do it.
Colin said, "How do you start a relationship with a firm you'd love to shoot for? Do you bug them with emails or phone calls? Because this is a big question."
Let's hear from these guys, because we've kind of covered this in the past.
Go ahead.
There are no hustle, I guess. There are no. I think Mike and I might disagree on this one. It's like you gotta try your luck. There's no other way. Obviously there are established relationships, and I'm never trying to take people's livelihood. I think ultimately it's a free market. No one can stop you from asking someone. Doesn't mean they're going to listen to you or want to talk to you. I mean, I'm sure you know this. Like, people can be very loyal to their photographer, and that's fantastic. And that and then you just move on. Sometimes it's something you build over the long term, and you chat here and there until it happens. To me, the one thing that I'm very, very adamant about is that all of this has to be done within the rule of engagement. Like, I've had this many times where clients have said, well, I was approached by so-and-so, and they're like, can we I'm sure we could shoot this for free and do it and make it really good, I'm like, well, that's just dirty. Like, you can't. Do you know what I mean? Like, you can't just go and give away your images and give away the work, and I think it's okay to show that maybe you have something to bring that their other photographer or photographers don't have. I mean, there are many firms that shoot. I still believe that a lot of architects could benefit from having multiple photographers and multiple different reasons. So
I have clients that'll have me and another photographer both shoot the building when it's done every time, because they want both perspectives.
When we did the shoot for Zahadi, like, they had 3 photographers. I mean, they have like 3 photographers, and like we were sitting on the balcony with Yvonne Ban and going like, what are we doing here? That's great.
You're doing your thing. He's doing his. They're 2 different things, man. They're 2 different things. Both valid.
I was having a conversation
we just happen to be, I don't think they're usually there at the same time. It's just with schedule and this particular location we had to access where our shoots coincided. And there are some firms in Toronto here that hire multiple photographers too.
Yeah, for the same project.
Would be, obviously it's usually a budget thing, but it would be such a great thing if more people did, because it's like so invaluable to get multiple people's perspectives on things. I don't think we're never trying to steal people's clients, but everybody's working with someone. We just look for people who we want to work with, and there's no one approach. Yeah,
but there's no harm in approaching people. So I mean, again, like, if you can't approach people who are already working with someone else, well, you'll never work with anybody.
Yeah,
that's that's not reasonable. So I think, but okay, to answer maybe. Colin, was it? Yeah, Colin's question. It's really about building relationships.
I agree.
There's no, and I think social media has sort of broken that a little bit, and people think, oh, because I can reach out to someone on social media and comment on it. It's like, you still have to build a relationship. Just say hi, be polite, be professional, bring something interesting to the table. Don't just say, oh, I could shoot your building. Go show me what you can do with it, and then we can talk, whatever. But yeah, that's I don't know if that answers the question.
Yeah, I think it does. And it's almost the same as
the hands, they're just
it's almost the same as making a photograph. There's an almost infinite number of ways to accomplish it, and everyone is different, and there's no rules. It's all a puzzle. Right, so it's the same goes with building your portfolio of clients. So I agree, and I liked what you talked about rules of engagement. That's good. We should have like an official rules of engagement article on our APA. Yeah. Another one I would add to that is I think it's great to approach a client who has working with another photographer. I don't think it's great to target the work of that photographer, even if you don't think the work is great. I think personally saying like, oh, you shouldn't be working with that person, they're awful. Never. I think that's never a way to do it. I think you always have to let your work stand on its own. And I've had people my clients have asked me about other photographers, and I just said, you should work with them if you want to, and if you see something that in their work that you like, that's why you should work with them. I'm not going to comment on their work. That's their work, so.
Yeah, I think there's a certain point where photographers aren't necessarily any better than one another. There's almost like a skill plateau where you get to there and you're not better, you're just different, and you're getting hired for what the experiences that have led to you having your vision and your background, and how that translates into your photographs more so than your technical expertise. And I think when you get to that level, it's just so freeing. Like, I understand, that and I think, and I joke about like you guys, you just so eloquently speak about your careers, and that's very humbling to me. But I think we could all agree, that we kind of feel that there's a ton of architectural photographers who are extremely talented. I don't feel threatened by any of them. I just know that their work is different. And someone who hires Tom is probably not going to hire me. You know what I mean? Just because our work, I don't feel like Tom is better or worse. I just feel like the work is different. And the architect probably feels the same way. Once you get to that certain level of competency, you know what I mean? You just pick the style that you want more than are they better or are they worse? Because everyone's good. Everyone's amazing at a certain level. You know what I mean?
Well, competency is the price of entry. You know what I mean? Like if you're not good enough, you're not having this conversation in the first place. So yeah, it does. I think, yeah, it's about personality and style and yeah, and all of it. It's not just one factor. I think, just the fact that they like your face better actually can be very important. Well, that's true.
That would explain why you got Amanda around, huh?
Uh,
They like your face better than yours, Younes. Yeah. Amanda, congratulations on the book. Really beautiful work. It was really, really wonderful to talk to you guys. I'm huge fans of your work. I think you're among the best around, truly. It's been a lot of fun to talk to you guys. Is there anything else you want to tell the 60?
I'm just going to jump in and say you can purchase the book 50/50 on their website.
Are there any copies left, Amanda?
Sure, a few, yeah.
Nice.
There's a few copies.
Not for long.
You got to move quick. Doublespacephoto.com. Is the book $50? Is 50/50 $50?
It
easy. We're not good with numbers.
Doublespace.com.
We're not good with numbers. We just keep it like.
that's
Just learned one.
Yeah.
Wonderful.
Doublespacephoto.com. I was like, what a domain, Doublespace, but it's doublespacephoto.com.
That's right.
Check out their work. It's incredible. I can't thank them enough for their generous offer of their time to come on our show. They are two of the most talented photographers I know. Teamed up. It's almost unfair at that rate. But thank you guys again for coming on. And we will see you in another week or so. If you guys have guests that you'd like to see on this show, put them in the comments. If you have questions you'd like to answer, put them in the comments. We are open to getting people on here from all around the world, and we'd love to hear from you. So thank you guys for all of your questions and sticking with us, and hopefully you enjoyed this, and we'll do some more for you.
Amanda and Younes, stay on the Zoom call for a minute if you would. We're going to shut down the live. Thanks, everybody. We love you all. It's been great.
Thank you guys so much for having us, by the way. And you guys, yeah, it's an honor to be with you guys. So
Our pleasure, truly.
Okay, we did it.
We made it through the whole thing with